Good morning from Sacred Space at Titania's Realm. The time is 9:14 a.m. on the 24th of December 2025. Happy Christmas Eve. To those of you who subscribe and follow in that pathway, it's a lovely morning. It's a bit humid, so it bodes that it's going to be quite hot later on again, but it feels a bit cooler this morning than it did yesterday, so maybe we'll get a little bit of a reprieve if the Holy One and all manifestations of goodness, righteousness, is merciful to us here in Brisbane, Australia, and our subtropical summers. Just got to go with the flow, and it is what it is. But yes, yesterday was a scorcher. I see that it's supposed to be 34 degrees, so I think tomorrow. So that's going to be a stinking hot Christmas day, especially for all the people cooking roasts and hams and, well, if you're clever, you get around it, people of Earth. People just, don't always cook all these things anymore because it's just too unbearably hot. So anyway, wherever you are in the space-time continuum on planet Earth, if you're celebrating Christmas, have a lovely day with your family and don't overwork yourself. The spirit of the day is actually about presence, Presence, not so much the presents, Presents. I mean, who doesn't love to get presents? Everyone does, but it's not about that actually. It's about being together as a family and enjoying quality time together, because we all live such busy, hectic lives now. We're all part cyborg, glued to our phones 24/7. We barely have time to think for our own thoughts as well as, interact with other humans. Some humans whom we love deeply and cherish just basically don't get the quality of attention that they should be getting, or they used to get pre the technological age. So think about that too. Put your phones aside and talk to each other, spend time with each other, and laugh and hold each other and be kind. So I felt inspired. I've only been up a short time, by the gods. I felt inspired to read to you this morning rather than at some time later in the morning or later in the day. And we're in here with the birdie boys. They're happy. Kermie's chewing on his nails. He's been doing that a lot lately. I guess it's a good thing. I don't know. I don't know if it's good if they're chewing on their own claws, but he's happy, and little one's preening too, so they're happy, and Mama T's pretty happy in all things told. I've got quiet and peace, and I saw all the friends that that came to me, or I went to them in the past week, and I have plenty of food in the fridge. Actually, I worry that I bought too much because it's only me and I might struggle to get through some of it. But I always worry about that, and then I forget that I actually eat large amounts of food, so there'll be enough and there'll be plenty and everything's fine. I kind of have this panic disorder that kicks in at this time of year, triggering from Christmases long past, long old ghosts just going to put the fan on. It's a bit stifling. Maybe we should do this in the air conditioning, my boys. You enjoyed the air conditioning yesterday. You thought it was heaven on a stick, and it is. Heaven on a stick. Okay, bud. Right, that's a little bit better, just needed that waft of circulating air. It is a bit weird, I just said to the birds, should be in the other room, the aircon. But I just feel like having a bit of fresh air flowing through the windows and airflow. So it should be as it is, how I want it to be. Enjoying fresh air. Because the aircon is lovely, I love it, but you have to close all the windows and doors. So I really only use it now when it's unbearable, gets too unbearable, and you know, then it's heaven on a stick. I try not to use it all the time because I'm conscious of I need to adapt to the change in climate, and but if it's unbearable, it's unbearable. It was unbearable yesterday and the day before that and the day before that, so we sat in the other room. I'm waffling on, aren't I? Sorry, people of Earth. Let's get on with the story. Chapter 11. Far from the fighting, the Legion's night camp rocked to the rhythm of marching. Row after row, column after column, centuries of men flowed in through the gap in the trenches that Valerius had left as a gateway, dropped their packs in the place their tent would stand, where it had stood in every marching camp they had ever raised, and began to help with the digging of trenches and the raising of the earth rampart with the network of crossed staves on top, and the pitching of tents, and as evening came, the building of fires and the cooking of meals. Hundreds of soldiers all cooking their own meals. That would have been quite a sight to see, actually. Right. They were drawing lots for guard duty and finding in their packs the strips of dried mutton and figs and hazelnuts that would enliven the evening meal. Oh yum, I love figs and hazelnuts. I always buy hazelnut flavoured milk chocolate, it's my favourite. I'd buy more of the actual nuts, but they're so bloody expensive. I looked at Brazil nuts the other day because I love Brazil nuts too. $17 something. By all the gods. My favourite thing as a teenager walking through the city from Wellington Girls College was to stop at a very posh department store called Kirkcaldy's and Staines, and I would stop and I would buy the hot nuts out of there. Like, they had a bar where they kept all the roasted nuts hot. That was my luxury as a child. It used to cost me, I can't remember what it cost me. My pocket money was $12 a week. I think it cost me $8, something like that, and I didn't mind. It was my big spend for the week, those hot roasted nuts coming home. Did it cost me $8? It wasn't cheap even then, comparatively. Anyway, It's a funny memory, but yes, hazelnuts. Very good for you too. That would enliven the evening meal. When the peace was shattered by the harsh, high squeal of a legionary cornu blaring the alarm. 3 notes sounded 3 times, with a gap left between the second and third repetitions, and a minor flurry at the end. Gods! They've cut off the whole of the third cohort and 2 centuries of the second. Your sister's been busy. Because his life and the actions of the few moments depended on it, Longinus spoke in Thracian, quietly, and contrived to frown. In Latin, loud enough for anyone to hear, Valerius said, "The tail of the legion is under attack. Find Civilis. Be ready to ride." He was already turning. The legate's pavilion lay offset to one side of the centre point of the camp, where the where the direct and lateral pathways crossed. Oh, I just had breakfast and it's like everything's like choking, refluxing. It's just awful. It shouldn't be, because all it was Wheat Bix by all the gods, but anyway. Let me just catch my breath. The pen... Still not right, am I? Right, here we go. The pennants of the Legion and Cerealis' personal mark of the dolphin in blued green on white hung still in the mist, which means there was no breeze. Lucius, the message youth newly branded for Mithras, stood outside with his head tipped up like a hound startled into the scent. Valerius called to him, "Cerealis, where is he?" and followed the jerk of the boy's head inside. Finely cured goat hides scented with rosemary oil and rose water made the roof and walls of the legate's pavilion. That would smell quite lovely, I would think. A brazier kept it warm. A clerk's desk was placed to one side. Rosemary oil and rose water. Valerius caught the legate in the act of rising from his bath. He was damp and draped in linen about the thighs. His armour hung from the central pole of the tent, slick with oil and polish. "Your Excellency?" Valerius let the tent flap, crack, closed behind him. Tent flap, crack, closed behind. There we go. Back in the room, people of Earth. "You heard the alarm? The rear part of the second cohort is under attack and the third is in grave difficulty. The centurions have already sounded the recall at speed, but if the Iceni war host has command of the forest, even those who can run may not be able to reach us here without help. With your permission, I would take Civilis and his Batavians and make the rearward sentries secure." There was a risk in offering a tactical opinion to the man who considered himself the master tactician of all Britannia, more skilled than any previous governor and at least the equal of the one currently waging war in the west. Valerius, waiting, took time to pray. Cerealis reached for his undershirt. Whoever his bath attendant had been, he was no longer present. He said, "How soon before they attack the camp?" Valerius shook his head. "I don't think they will. Even the Iceni are not mad enough to attack a fortified night camp. But the cornisan of the second cohort has signalled that his men are in combat against superior numbers and that he has lost connection with the ranks behind." Cerealis's body was knotted with scars in front and behind, testament to tactics of attack and retreat that had been less than wholly successful. He pulled on his shirt. "You can't go," he said. "The Batavians are not reliable. Civilis has been with the Ninth since they were stationed on the Rhine, and he dreams of death in glory in circumstances just such as these. You would find yourself at the centre of a bloodbath with discipline abandoned in the quest for a name sung in the winter halls." Might be right about that. When you won out, people of Earth, by all the gods and goddesses. The smell from the brazier was not unlike the one sacred to Mithras. The red of it was the red of spilled blood and the mottling of a bull's hide. The governor's armour was ruddy in the heat and made a mirror disjointedly. Valerius took a soft step to the side and another until he could see the legate's face clearly reflected alongside his own. Watching himself and the other man equally, he said, "We need horsemen to reach the rear ranks in time, or they are lost. Better to risk Civilis than to close the better half of the Batavians. Lose the better half of the Batavians." Their eyes met, glancing off polished iron. A legate and a decurion turned messenger who offered tactics in a voice so dry, so clear, so lacking in emotion that it was hard to see past it. Cerealis averted his gaze first. He reached for the beaker of wine that sat on the clerk's desk and drank, savouring the richness. He did not offer any to the dry-voiced decurion standing just inside his tent. Presently he said, "I need cavalry here. We can't be without horsemen when the forest may be full of rebel warriors. Take the half-wing you brought here with you under Civilis's command. Leave me the other half under his sister's son, Henges, who is prefect and would lead them now if they were not so heart-sworn to the old man. Find Henges and send him to me, and signal the second cohort to make more speed in their retreat. The men are to reach here with all expediency, only to fight if actively engaged. Excellency. The tent flap let in a little cold as it opened and closed. Kyrialis drained his wine to the dregs and let the clerk boy refill it before he looked again at the armour in which the decurion's face had been reflected. It was hard to remember the shape of it, only the passion in the black eyes that was the opposite of the empty dryness of his voice. Outside, Longinus held the white-legged colt for Valerius to mount. The beast stood well in the chaos of others mounting. Through the commotion, men of the second cohort flooded in, running now, knowing themselves lucky not to be caught in the carnage, and grateful to their legate for ordering them in to the safety of the night camp with its ditches and stockade, not forcing them back to save men who were beyond saving. Behind, half of the Batavians had mounted, half had not. Riding out, they took the track south, excuse me, with Civilis at the head, and the horns of a full cohort sent them on their way. They kept to the centre of the paved trackway this time, pushing hard, and the legionaries of the second cohort ran sideways to let them past, and then ran on again in near order for the camp. When there was no one to overhear, Longinus said, "You have exactly what you wanted. The half cohort that is most loyal to Civilis rides with us, and the rest are left behind." "Did you bewitch the legate?" "No, I told him the truth, and he heard it. The gods support that above everything else, always. Tell the standard bearer to blow 5 times on his horn." Down the length of the ancestors' stone trackway, the 5-fold notes of a Batavian cavalry horn ripped apart the remains of the fog and let the sun in blindingly. Hearing it, knots of warriors and legionaries paused in their fighting. Blades and teeth and gouging fingers loosened their bite on flesh and skin and bone. Legionaries and warriors alike. I wonder what's wrong with me. I hope I'm not coming down with something. It's very phlegmy, isn't it? Ghastly. What can I take to get rid of that? Sniff some peppermint oil maybe. Couldn't hurt, could it? Something that will clear the airways. Eucalyptus oil. Anyway, legionaries and warriors alike. Here we go again. I might actually do that, can't hurt. You'll hear me sneezing and snuffling and snotting next, but I've got to clear that throat. Right, boys, your mother's got trouble. Your mother's got trouble. Don't think that'll do anything. I just inhaled a bit of it, but you never know. Can't hurt. Can't hurt, people of Earth. But we were rudely interrupted by my phlegm. So sexy, Mama too. Will you still love me when I'm 64 or 6 foot under? Doubtful. But anyway, on we go and on we go. Legionaries and warriors alike believed the sound signalled help for them alone, only that the warriors had been told to appear afraid, and did so convincingly. Without orders or any coherent agreement, both sides stepped slowly back, relinquishing the narrow strip of green turf that had become their contested ground. Early in the fighting, warriors who wanted to live had learned not to take on any groups of legionaries who formed a shield wall and advanced on them. The legionaries, for their part, had found that stepping off the trackway into the forest was suicide. Once past the first rank of trees, it was impossible to hold their shields together, and with the wall gone, they were easy pickings for spear and sling. Quickly then, the narrow track of turf between forest and track had become the debatable territory, the no man's land where neither legionaries nor warriors held sway. For no better reason than that it existed, and could be deemed a victory to take and hold, this band of green had become the focus of the fiercest fighting. It lay open now and quiet. Peace fell raggedly. Men and women on the brink of slaughter dared to breathe deeply and think of more than survival. A hot afternoon sun burned away the last of the mist. Shafts of slanting light fell equally on the dead, the dying, and those left standing who drank water from skins, passed along each line and glared at those opposite. Behind them, the marsh lay innocent as a new day, spreading green-grey and flat but for rushes and tussocks of sphagnum moss. The earth doesn't care about stupid humans and their stupid wars. Should take note of that, shouldn't we? The earth lives and breathes with or without us. Always has, always will. That's why you should stay grounded and live in harmony with our actual earth beneath our feet. Not focus on distant, dead planets wasting resources, Elon Musk. Not focus on technology that is anti-humanist and turning us into part cyborg, Elon Musk. And all the other idiots that go along with that, by the gods. We are earthlings for a reason. Born here, our spirits seeded here for a reason. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me either most of the time, but there is a reason for it. And when you betray that, you betray your very humanity. Mama T has spoken. Just my opinion, but I'll be sticking to that till the day I die. Flanders fields, soaked so much in blood that the poppies still bloom red. Human beings. Just have to shake your head at it. Damp scents spiked the air, delicate in the carnage. Briaka stood in the shelter of a budding birch and counted the numbers left standing. For as far as she could see to either side, there were more warriors than legionaries amongst the living, and more legionaries than warriors amongst the dead. For these two facts, and for signs of battle sense emerging amongst pockets of previously untested warriors, she was grateful. For the lack of the passion within her, she was afraid and heart-sore and numb. She had killed efficiently enough and given a lead to the youths who had followed her part of the battle. But the gap in her soul was vast as the eastern horizon, and the wind blew through without cease. She spun the hilt of her blade over and over in her hand and ached to hear the music that was gone. There are not many who will see what's missing, and fewer who will know why. The voice spoke from just behind her left shoulder. Branches wavered and parted, and Sigfa was there in a shine of blonde hair laced with kill feathers and a tight, taut smile, and grey eyes sharp and hard as midwinter ice. Her face was freckled finely on one side with spots of dried blood, as if she had come too close to someone else's death. Her blade hung at her side, unused. She was breathing lightly and fast, like a horse at the end of a race. Sigfa had always been beautiful. She was everything of Caradoc, her father, but made as woman and more graceful. 2 years' imprisonment in Rome with the half-man her father had become had left her quieter and harder, less forgiving of others and startlingly savage in battle. Rape after rape by the procurator's men had driven her further down the same path. She was bright and brittle, like a blade that has been over-polished and must rust soon or break. There was nothing to be done or said. Eamid had offered healing and been turned down after 3 days. Only Valerius, flawed and clearly damaged, had offered a kind of example. Alone of the warriors, Sigfa had accepted him without question, seeing in him the one man who could teach her how to destroy everything of Rome. Briaka said, "Have you run down the full length of the track?" "Most of it." Sigfa grinned and accepted the water skin. She rinsed her mouth and spat, and the water was threaded red where her lungs had bled a little from the run. There was no reason to stay after I'd passed on Valerius's signal, and I wanted to get here before him. Excuse me. To see him fight? Partly. I saw him in Gaul. He'll be different now, and I would like to see it. But not only that. The Sigfa handed the skin back. Her gaze was sharp and cold as a flaying knife in winter, and she made no effort to soften what it cut. If it comes to a battle between your brother and your son for leadership of your warriors, do you know who you would have as your successor? Except Valerius, no one else had dared touch on this. There was relief in having it spoken so openly. Briaca said, "You have already chosen. You showed it on the morning the messenger died. With your clear support, it should not come to a battle, only to words." Possibly, but Valerius will need more than me on his side if the war host are to accept him. The youths only know what they see, but most of the spear leaders are old enough to remember when he was burning their steadings and slaughtering their warriors. It is not only Cunimar who believes he will side with Rome again in the end. He knows that. It's why he took the message from Cumulodunum to Cerealis himself, when he could as easily have sent Hawk or Longinus. He's brought the 9th Legion this far. We may only have trimmed the tail of the snake, but we wouldn't have done it without him. Briaca watched Sigfa shrug. You think it's not enough? It's a start. He needs to be seen in battle, not just by us, but by the legions. When it's obvious whose side he's on, the warriors will begin to see who he is and what he can do. Until then, they are waiting each moment for him to betray us, and they'll side with Cunimar if there's any conflict in the meantime. There will only be conflict if I am seen to be failing, Briaca said. It won't happen before Valerius is ready. Thank you. Sigfa had always been the most straightforward of Caradoc's children. I had hoped for that. And first, Valerius is on his way with the Batavians. They may do all the fighting for us, but if we need to join them, would you let me hold your shield side against the last few legionaries? I'll just shut my window because that's going to be noisy. Briaca shifted her grip on her blade. For 10 years in battle, Sigfa had taken her shield side and never had to ask. She said, "That place is always yours. until you don't want it. Just move us down a little bit. Under the hard and brittle mask was the daughter who had shared life and death too often to count. Sigva said softly, "That won't ever happen." She blinked fiercely and forced a smile. "Watch for the black horse with the white legs and the moon on its brow. Your brother has found himself a mount to match the crow horse. If it brings him through alive, I'll fight him for it before Kunamar ever gets the chance." For the first time that day, Briaka grinned. That would be something to watch. Some horses are worth fighting for, by the way. Just like some men are yet to find a man worthy of fighting for, though, people of Earth. One day maybe, but then I won't have to fight. He'll come to me of his own free will, with true, deep, ardent, passionate, loyal, faithful love in his heart, mind and loins. Mama te ever the romantic, you understand? Oh, smallest violin. Just had a funny thought, but I won't say it. We're not manifesting that, people of Earth. It has to be a man of high caliber and my equal in all things. Can't abide lackluster, treacherous, false men. Can't abide them. Certainly won't fight for them. It's beneath my dignity. It's embarrassing. Ugh! Then you get them and they're worthless. Can't even ask you out on a proper date. Treat you with respect. Ugh! Want to vomit in my mouth a little bit when I think about it. But I shan't. Right, here we go. The day fell apart smoothly in the way of a dance laid out by the gods. Valerius rode with Civilis at the head of his cavalry. At his word, the Batavians reined their mounts to a walk and rode in single file down the green turf track. The black colt with the white legs and the moon between its eyes led the way, stepping delicately over the bodies of the slain, as if they were sleeping and must not be disturbed. The line of living legionaries greeted horse and rider as if both were old friends. All of them knew Civilis and the colt he had trained. Most had heard overnight of the messenger Decurion, who was a lion of Mithras, hidden god of the legions, and had risked his life to bring word from stricken Camulodunum. If they did not recognize Valerius directly, they knew that he brought victory and rescue, and that the fighting, for them at least, was almost over. They stepped forward onto the green turf, crashing sword hilts to shield rims in greeting. The rhythm of their welcome chant matched the beat of the horse's walk solidly full time. They barely took time to notice the wall of warriors waiting at the end of the line. There were 200 cavalrymen and a little over 300 legionaries, not enough to match them evenly, but sufficient for each horse to shield each pair of men. Thus, as the last of the Batavians passed the first of the Romans, the rider halted and swung his mount inward so that he faced the shields and lowered blades of two men who knew him, at least by sight, and greeted him, smiling, in Latin. Each of his fellows did likewise, so that to Briaca and Sigfa, stationed at the fore of the massed Iceni warriors waiting at the distant end of the trackway, the line of approaching faces became instead a broad band of bay horseflesh with chainmail shimmering above. The war host did not chant or stamp or greet, but waited in silence, as Valerius had asked that they do. As he had not asked, but was inevitable, the overwhelming majority slid their blades from their belts as he approached and watched him with hate and suspicion naked on their faces. Quietly, for no one else's ears, as Sigfa said, "If he makes one wrong move, there is nothing you and I can do to save him." The white-legged colt walked on alone to the end of the line until it faced the warriors, close enough for them to feel the soft rush of its breath, damp and hot, on their faces. White-eyed, waiting, believing and unbelieving, each one of them was ready to kill the man who rode it if he betrayed them now to Rome. Facing them all, unsmiling, Valerius raised his sword arm. His blade was Roman, and the mail shirt he wore. The sun was almost gone, carved to thin strips by the trees, so that the evening was more green than gold, shading to grey. Stray shards of light sparked off the honed edge of his blade, and the chainmail and the silver, at his harness mounts. The white-legged colt snorted and shook its head, spraying white frothing saliva equally onto Briaca. And on the Roman centurion, who held the end of the legionary line less than 3 spear lengths away. The centurion grinned up at the mounted man and pressed the heel of his hand to the centre of his sternum in the universal greeting that passed between all initiates of Mithras. Briaca saw a wave of grief pass fleeting over her brother's features. He closed his eyes and touched the middle knuckle of his own thumb to the same place. His lips moved in prayer, and she felt the pressure grow around her as the waiting became too much and too uncertain, and more than one of the warriors reached a decision to kill. Without warning, too fast to be seen or to stop, her brother's raised blade came down, whistling, and severed the sword wrist of the centurion. 2 horses along, Civilis raised his voice in the battle cry of his forefathers. The hornsmen of the Batavians blew 3 barking notes that covered the start of the shouting. Before the last sound died, the slow unreality of the dance had changed to the hammer of conflict. 4 centuries of legionaries trained to respond to any attack, however unlikely, came to fighting stance in moments. Led by Civilis, reborn as the hero Arminius, the Batavians hurled themselves into battle against the men who had been their comrades, singing paeans to death. At the end of the line, the mass of Iceni warriors led by the Boadicea took on the nearest century of men. Bryaka fought with Sigfar at one side and Dubornos at the other, and did her best to let the rhythms of fighting pull her forward so that she might remember what it was to kill without thinking, without planning, just because the opening was there, and so mend the hole in her soul and let the wind blow through less coldly. I kind of get it, actually. I kind of get how that is the only way to soothe the outrage of what was done to you and your daughters. I get it more than most. That's why I need to be surrounded by strong, decent, honouring, good people. I've had way less in my day. Valerius was never far away. He watched her, as he had in the forest, when she tested herself with the blade, and, as it had then, the knowledge of that spurred her forward and gave her a spark that was not truly hers, but was good nonetheless. Towards the end, she felt his attention waver and saw him draw his horse upwards to kill someone. It was not as savage as the annihilation of the procurator, but neatly efficient and done without thought, part of a greater move that broke through the last remaining shield wall of the enemy. She heard him shout orders in guttural Batavian, and saw men answer who had never been under his command, and yet followed him because he led them to victory. He drew them together, a fist of mail and flesh, and drove it into the small circle of legionaries, smashing it apart. Bryaka watched it with her heart and soul laid bare to the beauty of it. Dubornos swore softly at her side. I had forgotten what it was to watch him fight. He is as born to it as you are, but he cares less about living. If he had been with us in the beginning, so much might have been different. Thoughtfully, Sigfa said, "It's a pity Kunamar isn't here to see it," which was when they found that the Boadicea's son was nowhere to be seen, and that he should have been, and so set about finding why he was not. And thus concludes this morning's offerings of Amanda Scott's Boadicea, Dreaming the Serpent Spear. I've got things to do now. I've got to clean both cages and make a baba ganoush. I devoured the last baba ganoush I made. In 2 days I ate the whole lot. I guess it's healthy, but then all that tahini is fattening. But well, it was refreshing and quite delicious. So it was a big massive bowl. It should have lasted, 4 or 5 days, but then I guess it doesn't keep that long anyway. Oh, it was yummy. So I decided to buy some more eggplants and make another batch. I'll have to get into the habit of making it regularly because it's healthy and it's refreshing and quite delicious actually. Right, people of Earth, as I said at the beginning of this reading, have a beautiful Christmas Eve. Stay safe, stay happy, stay wild. Never let the bastards grind you, me and us down. Hold your line. Live your very best lives according to your abilities, and surround yourself with people who genuinely love you, and blessed be. From Sacred Space at Titania's Realm. Bye for now.